guys, I'm Jessie Quinn from Cup of Books, and welcome to another Comics Corner. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the comics that were on my pull list from my last Comics Corner video because they're the series that I am the most loyal to at this point in time, and then I will talk a little bit about the other comics that I picked up just for funsies. Starting off July, I picked up the third issue of The Movement. I'm really loving all the characters. It's so great to see more and more of their personalities as the story progresses. And I really love the fact that we're getting to see women of color as superheroes in prominent roles, and also queer women as superheroes in prominent roles. The art style is really nitty-gritty, but I think it matches the story pretty well. The first few pages in particular just were really beautifully done in a really nitty-gritty way, but beautifully so. I'm really excited about this series. Can't wait for issue 4! Next we have Batgirl, which I believe I mentioned in my last video that I've actually sort of fallen out of the loop with the Batgirl series. However, I've caught up enough where the summaries and synopsises in the comics have managed to fill in the gaps for me. This issue feels more like breathing space between the ventriloquist story and whatever new storyline that is going to be picking up, because there isn't really an antagonist. We get to see Batgirl get into a few different scuffles, but it doesn't really seem like there's a big bad. Mostly this issue just focuses on how various characters are handling the death that has happened recently. It's just nice to see how the story is progressing. I am so glad we are done with that ventriloquist story. Please don't bring that character back. Did not like that story. I'm ready for something else. Then the last title that made my pull list for July, which was my list of comics I would definitely be picking up, was Journey into Mystery issue 654. One of the things I've really enjoyed about this series so far is just the dialogue. It's incredibly witty and very humorous. This issue, however, because it was very action-y, didn't have as many of those humorous moments, although Beta Ray Bill and Lady Sif have this really great rapport going on, and they do have a really great moment that involves a lot of yeses and a lot of nos, and if you've read the issue, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't checked out this title, I do recommend it. Also, I want more Lady Sif swag. I want a t-shirt or a mug or buttons or something, and Marvel just does not have that. And then moving on to some of the comics I ended up picking up, even though they weren't on my pull list, I'm gonna go ahead and start with the one that I was the most excited about, and that was Batman 66 issue 1! This is a new comic book series that DC is putting out that is based on the Adam West Batman show from the 60s. Again, I repeat, it is based on the Adam West Batman show from the 60s. This series is also the start of DC Comics trying to make their online digital comics a little bit more interactive, which is definitely an interesting idea. And so I ended up buying the digital comic first. I wasn't that wowed by the digital comic. However, a lot of people really liked the digital issues. I think I'm definitely in the minority here saying that they didn't quite work for me, but I think the reason it didn't work just is because I'm a stick in the mud when it comes to comics. You can tell that the folks who created this comic book really like the Adam West Batman show. There's just these really brightly colored panels that look like 60s pop art. Also, the dialogue is so spot on for the characters. You've got a lot of old chums and golly gee Batman. I was so pumped when I heard they were doing this, and I'm so glad that it was everything I could have ever wanted. I also decided to pick up issue 2 of the Batman Superman team-up book that DC has just recently put out. I think the direction they're going is definitely interesting, though I feel it's been done before. This issue definitely alludes to sort of different takes on the DC universe prior to the New 52, which is interesting. It's pleasant to see some of those character dynamics returned. The art style is definitely growing on me. I think it's really interesting, very dynamic, very fluid, but it's also really surreal. I definitely see how a lot of people would really like this book. So far, it's only been okay-ish for me. It's not really high on my priority list right now. And then because I heard just so many people talking about this one, I decided to go ahead and take a chance and pick up the first issue of Red Sonja, which is a comic book series that is through Dynamite. I really like the way the story is framed as a story within a story. In the beginning of this issue, we are following a king and his army as they sort of look over the ruin that used to be their enemy's camp, and they discover Red Sonja. She ends up telling her story. There's a lot of "but I am no man" moments a la Éowyn in Lord of the Rings in this, and I think for some people that might be a drawback. For me, I really like moments like that. It's sort of a guilty pleasure. Overall, I actually kind of recommend this one. I enjoyed it and I will be picking up issue 2 at least. And then lastly, this is not an issue that came out recently, but it's an issue that I've been eyeing every time I walk into the comic book shop. This is issue 1 of Willow, and this is the Wonderland arc. Besides the fact that the cover is just gorgeous, I wanted to pick this one up because Willow is one of my favorite characters in the TV series, and from the few issues I've read out of season 8 and season 9 in the comics, I generally have enjoyed Buffy the Vampire Slayer comics. I just don't read them that often. The darker take on Alice in Wonderland is nothing new, and for me it didn't really work, although it's not supposed to be Wonderland, which helps. A lot of what I like about the characters in Buffy the Vampire Slayer is their interactions with other characters, and because Willow is sort of on her own, at least in this first issue, there's not a lot of draw for me. For other people, this may work splendidly, but for me, not so much. So on to my pull list for August, which consists of titles that I definitely plan on picking up unless there is a zombie apocalypse or something, in which case I can make no guarantees. The first issue I plan on picking up is The Movement, issue 4, because I am so excited to see where the series is planning to go. I will also be picking up issue 23 of Batgirl because it's Batgirl and I'm gonna be picking up Batgirl. I also plan on picking up issue 2 of Batman 66 because I am so sold on this series. And then finally, I will definitely be picking up the last issue of Journey into Mystery, issue 655, and I will have my box of tissues prepared so I can cry myself to sleep after I finish it. Oh, that was a car.